personally, I suspect, highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression.
Rowan Atkinson, known worldwide for his role as Mr. Bean, has captured attention once again, but this time not with his famous humor, but with a very serious stance. In addition to being a talented comedian, Atkinson has become a staunch advocate for freedom of expression and recently directed strong criticism towards the Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer. The reason for this clash concerns policies regarding the control of offensive speech in the United Kingdom, an issue that has sparked intense debate in the country. While Starmer advocates for laws to curb language that could harm or incite hatred, Atkinson believes these restrictions risk limiting people's freedom to express themselves openly. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us a lot. Let's begin. For Atkinson, the problem lies not only in the restriction itself, but also in the fact that these laws leave a wide margin for interpretation, allowing the police or the judicial system to subjectively decide which comments are harmless and which are offensive. He has pointed to alarming examples of people being arrested for comments that most would consider innocuous or even absurd. One of the cases he has highlighted is that of a man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay. Atkinson argues that such incidents reflect a worrying trend. Laws that, rather than protecting freedom of expression, can be used to silence individuals for trivial comments. At the core of his criticism is the Public Order Act, specifically Section 5, which allows authorities to arrest anyone who makes comments that could be deemed insulting, even when there is no physical harm or real threat involved. According to Atkinson, this law has been applied disproportionately and has led to ridiculous and concerning situations. By pointing out these flaws, Atkinson emphasizes that freedom of expression is a right that must be safeguarded in a democratic society, as it enables the exchange of ideas and opinions even if they are unpopular or uncomfortable for some. He has also highlighted how censorship and cancel culture directly impact comedy and the art of making people laugh. In his view, humor plays a vital role in society by exposing uncomfortable truths, challenging prejudices, and lightening complex issues. For centuries, comedy has served as a tool for expressing ideas that are difficult to address in other contexts, offering a lighter perspective on topics that might otherwise be taboo or controversial. However, Atkinson contends that this purpose is threatened when cultural norms or laws begin to restrict what can be joked about. For him, one of the biggest issues is that comedy largely depends on the risk of offending. Any joke, however innocent, has the potential to make someone uncomfortable, as laughter often arises from surprise and the unexpected. This essential aspect of humor directly conflicts with the growing trend of eliminating any comment that could be deemed offensive. Atkinson argues that this restriction stifles comedians' creativity, forcing them to self-censor and avoid controversial topics to avoid offending specific sensitivities. One aspect that Atkinson has pointed out is that there is no universal standard for what constitutes an offensive comment, as the perception of offense is deeply subjective and depends on factors like culture, personal experiences, and individual beliefs. What some find funny, others may find offensive, and vice versa. For him, allowing this subjectivity to control the realm of comedy equates to stifling an art form that relies on the freedom to explore and satirize all facets of human life. In his view, this poses a serious threat to diversity of thought, as comedians and other artists begin to avoid topics that were previously considered legitimate elements of social critique. Atkinson believes that this pressure to avoid any comment that could be misinterpreted has led to safer and consequently less relevant comedy. In his words, society loses a crucial tool for questioning and reflecting on difficult issues, a tool that has helped shed light on injustices and questionable behavior in an accessible way. In a world where comedy is limited by the fear of censorship, we risk losing a unique and essential voice for promoting dialogue and introspection. Atkinson has stressed the importance of understanding that freedom of expression does not imply an obligation to agree with what others say. The essence of this right is to allow the coexistence of diverse opinions, including those that may be offensive or at odds with majority norms. To him, protecting freedom of expression means defending others' right to express unpopular opinions, no matter how controversial or provocative they may seem. While he acknowledges that this is a complex right, as it can generate friction and misunderstandings, Atkinson Atkinson believes society should not resort to censorship as a solution. From his perspective, censorship is a dangerous remedy, often used by those in power to maintain control over the voices expressing themselves publicly. Atkinson has been a firm advocate of the idea that society must learn to live with the possibility of divergent opinions and viewpoints that challenge social norms. His criticism points to a growing trend in which certain institutions, groups, or even digital platforms become arbiters of what is acceptable or not for the public. According to Atkinson, when third parties are allowed to determine which ideas can circulate freely, censorship is given a position of legitimacy that can quickly expand into other areas. For him, freedom of expression is a right that must be vigorously protected, regardless of individual or collective sensitivities. In his words, defending this right is essential for preserving a society where debate, self-criticism, and independent thinking are possible, in an environment where the free expression of ideas is allowed, even if they may be uncomfortable. A more open, resilient, and above all, aware society of the diversity of thoughts and experiences that comprise it is fostered. He also expresses concern about the role of social media in limiting freedom of expression. For him, these platforms, which initially should have facilitated open dialogue, have become spaces of censorship and self-censorship, where controversial opinions are quickly attacked and cancelled. Atkinson observes that instead of being forums for the exchange of diverse ideas, many social networks have transformed into polarized and hostile environments, where a single opinion can unleash a wave of criticism that discourages others from expressing similar views. According to Atkinson, social media makes it easier for certain groups to exert disproportionate pressure on public opinion. What he finds worrying is that these dynamics create a kind of groupthink, where conformity is rewarded while any expression of dissent is punished. In his view, this not only inhibits individual freedom of expression, but also limits society's ability to discuss and question important issues. The pressure from social networks, he says, reinforces a culture of self-censorship that negatively affects the authenticity of public dialogue. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us a lot. Let's continue. An additional problem, according to Atkinson, is that social media platforms operate under rules that are often opaque and open to ambiguous interpretations. The content policies of these platforms can vary and are inconsistently applied, increasing confusion among users. This lack of clarity allows censorship to be enforced selectively, particularly affecting those who dare to express unconventional or politically incorrect opinions. For Atkinson, this is a significant issue because these platforms, as public spaces, should respect and protect users' rights to express diverse opinions. He has also criticized the fact that social media platforms use algorithms that promote content provoking intense emotional reactions. This fosters an environment where controversial statements are deliberately amplified to spark passionate, often contentious debates. According to Atkinson, this creates an atmosphere where moderate ideas and nuanced discussions are sidelined, while extreme rhetoric takes center stage, hindering genuine exchange of ideas. This phenomenon, he argues, not only limits freedom of expression, but also prevents the formation of a well-informed and balanced public opinion. The actor has warned that by promoting such dynamics, social media erodes the diversity of thought. In his view, technology should facilitate the meeting of diverse perspectives rather than reinforce a cancel culture where a dominant viewpoint stifles all others. Atkinson believes society is delegating control over freedom of expression to a few tech companies, posing a threat to democracy and plurality. In his opinion, relying on a few platforms for the exchange of ideas means that freedom of expression is subject to corporate decisions that may shift based on economic or political interests. For Rowan Atkinson, allowing social media to act as arbiters of public expression without proper oversight or genuine commitment to freedom of speech threatens individual autonomy and the health of democracy. Another point Atkinson highlights is that political correctness can lead to self-censorship among artists who, anticipating potential backlash, avoid certain topics or characters for fear of retribution. This creates, in his view, a culture of fear in which creators limit their own work, sacrificing authenticity and depth in their projects. In the case of comedy, he notes that self-censorship not only affects artists, but also the audience, who receives a more superficial, less provocative product. Atkinson also criticizes how political correctness is being applied retroactively, impacting the legacy of past artists whose works are reinterpreted by today's standards. He argues this is a way of distorting historical context and judging past figures from a modern perspective, which he considers both unfair and counterproductive. For him, him, works of art should be understood within their context and appreciated for their intrinsic value, rather than dismissed or censored for failing to align with contemporary sensibilities. The actor advocates for a stance in which artistic freedom is respected as a way to enrich social debate, even when the topics addressed are uncomfortable or controversial. He argues that if a society truly values diversity, it is essential to allow artists and creators to express diverse ideas, even if these challenge norms or unsettle certain groups. In his view, genuine social progress requires a space where people can express their ideas and criticisms without fear of being silenced, enabling a society richer in viewpoints and more capable of addressing its own challenges and contradictions. In addition to his criticism of political correctness and cancel culture, Rowan Atkinson has expressed concern about the impact these phenomena have on the authenticity of characters and storytelling in current productions. For him, characters and stories should be constructed authentically, without being limited by cultural or ideological restrictions that seek to mold them to a single line of thought. Atkinson points out that in comedy, the purpose of each character is to reflect a part of society and allow the audience to see themselves or others in them, even if this means highlighting the absurdity or ridiculousness of certain human behaviors. Atkinson observes that when characters are forced to meet certain criteria imposed from a politically correct standpoint, the ability to create truly representative and complete figures is lost. This is, in his opinion, a significant loss for art, as it limits the potential to connect honestly with the audience. He emphasizes that authentic, complex characters allow viewers to see themselves in them and to question their own values, motivations, and biases. However, when these characters are shaped by a desire to avoid any form of criticism, they become flat, predictable, and ultimately unmemorable. He considers this phenomenon particularly detrimental in comedy, where characters are often exaggerated and placed in extreme situations precisely so that the audience can reflect on human nature and social flaws. By limiting creative possibilities in character construction, political correctness undermines comedy's power as a tool for observing and critiquing society. Atkinson has also voiced his concerns about how censorship on digital platforms affects freedom of expression and the scope of comedy today. He notes that social media and streaming platforms, often guided by algorithms and strict content guidelines, have reduced the opportunity for certain topics or styles of humor to reach a broad audience. For him, while these restrictions justify their rules in terms of safety and respect, they ultimately have a negative impact on content and the diversity of opinions. He argues that humor has historically been a safe channel for expressing opinions and criticisms in societies that have not always allowed absolute freedom of expression. In his opinion, limiting content on digital platforms erodes one of the few mediums that allowed mass and accessible social and political critique. This also affects emerging creators who feel constrained from addressing sensitive or controversial topics due to fear of sanctions, content removal, or bans. He points out that while it is necessary to establish certain guidelines for coexistence in the digital world, it is essential that platforms consider the cultural and social value of art and comedy. He proposes that, rather than applying rigid censorship, platforms should opt for strategies that strike a balance between user safety and creator freedom. Without this freedom, he argues, art, and comedy in particular, loses its purpose of questioning and provoking reflection in the audience. Atkinson calls for platforms and society as a whole to recognize the fundamental role comedy plays in public life. In his view, censorship and restrictions imposed on creators only impoverish the dialogue and diminish the diversity of viewpoints. Artistic freedom, he notes, benefits not only creators but also society, which, when exposed to diverse ideas, can better understand its own complexity and challenges. If you like this video and want to see more content on important issues, subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Your support helps us continue creating content. Thanks for being with us, and don't forget to share this video. See you next time.